Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the sit down. Today's episode is about disclosures. Now, the reason why I want to bring this specific topic up is because disclosures is one of the biggest discrepancies in real estate, and I don't want you to get burned. I don't want you to be in a situation where you're feeling a sense of liability and things like that. And I want to make sure that this is clear. Let's say you go into a real estate deal. You sign a contract. You're the seller. Now, at this point, you're the seller. You're going to sign what's called a property condition disclosure. Now, by the terms of the contract, you need to be open and honest with any material defects. It's not the buyer's responsibility to find out. If you have that mentality that it's the buyer's responsibility to find out, you are going to be in some serious trouble. Make sure if you know things, for a matter of fact, it's better to disclose than for things to be found out. And just make sure that you're just being honest. It's a real estate transaction. It's fair play. Just some people are okay with material defects, but just be honest about it. It's not going to do you any benefit to start trying to sweep things under the rug. It's not going to do anybody any good. So when you're in any real estate deal, regardless, and if you're working with an agent who tells you to sweep things under the rug, I promise you, you don't need to work with them. Do not listen to anybody who tells you to sweep things under the rug. Be upfront, have some integrity, and tell people the truth. Because the biggest discrepancy, the biggest problem right now is you had a lot of people who think that for some reason that if you waive a home inspection, you are allowed to do whatever you want. And that's not the case. And understand this, when you read a contract, waiving a home inspection does not mean the property is being sold as is. Does not mean that. It means that the buyer waives the right to have a professional come into the property and do a professional home inspection. That's all that means. So you're waiving the right to have a professional check out the property, do a report, and give it back to you. However, you're no longer able to terminate the contract due to an inspector's report. That does not mean that the contract is as is. So that is a big discrepancy that you see a lot of times in contracts. Sellers think that the property is as is because they waived a home inspection. It's not true. It's absolutely not true. That doesn't mean that you can give the buyer a property that is below par. Imagine you go to a car dealership, and because the car is used, they think that they could sell it to you without tires. That's basically, it's the same rational thinking, which isn't very rational at all. If you are buying a used car, you still want some level of warranty. You still want it to be in good condition. You still want it to have the nice glossed over tires. You want it to look nice. I mean, you're buying a car. Like, even if it's used, it's a $25,000 car. Same with a house. If you're buying a house that's maybe not in the greatest condition, you're still looking at $100,000 house. It's $100,000. So there's a level of expectation there. There's a level of the condition. There's a level of disclosing material defects. Now, granted, if you do not disclose material defects that you know, you're liable. And understand that. So make sure you're being open, honest, and there's no benefit for you sweeping things under the rug. And I'm telling you this right now, if your agent is telling you not to be honest, it's going to bite you. I hate to break it to you. It is going to bite you because let's say eventually they will find out. They eventually will find out. And honestly, if you're conducting business like that, you need to turn the other way. You can't do business like that in this market. It's illegal. It's a misrepresentation of the property. And ultimately, if the buyers would have known that, they wouldn't have put that type of money in there knowing that that discrepancy was there. So when you're doing business, do it ethically. Make sure you're doing the right thing and make sure you're telling your clients the right things. Make sure that they understand that just because they waive a home inspection, if you do want an as is property, you want as is, that's what you're looking for. Guess what? It's totally possible. You can do an as is sale. However, it has to be outlined in the contract. If it's not outlined in the contract, you're not in an as is sale. It has to state this property is as is, period. Has to be black and white. Types of as is sales, bank owned property. Bank owned property will outline that it is an as is sale. They won't give you money for anything. If you're buying a bank owned property, believe me, those guys do not care. They don't care if they don't care if the thing's got a door. They do not care. You are not getting $1 from the bank, I promise you. So if you do want an as is sale, make sure that it's outlined, because waiving a home inspection does not mean that. It's harder to get a credit. It's hard to get credit for certain discrepancies, but at the same time, there's rational things need to be met. Just because you're not an engineer does not mean, or a contractor, does not mean that you don't recognize discrepancies in the condition of the property. Again, going back to the used car thing, if your car showed up with no tires, I don't think you need to be an engineer to realize that you should have tires on the car. So there's a common sense practice that's always, even with houses. You can recognize what a house needs and what a house doesn't need. And ultimately, if you got a new car and it didn't have tires on it, it wouldn't really matter that you're not an engineer in order to build the car. You would still know, hey, yeah, I need 4 tires. Drive it. You would know that. And it's the same for a house. You would know that there's a level of discrepancy there. So make sure you're being honest. Make sure that there's a level of transparency, because one, I hate to break it to you, it's illegal. You can't do that. It's a misrepresentation of the property. And in the state of New York, there's a Disclosure Act. When you fill out a disclosure form, it's basically a sworn statement saying that this is true. This is true. That's yes, no, I don't know. Not applicable. Those are your options. If you say no or you say yes, that is a sworn statement saying no issues. If you say no, no issues. You say yes, yep, we got issues. Disclosure, 100%. Here are the issues. This is what I plan to do about it. Or you can say, I don't know, which is all fair. Now, that is believed as true. So not filling that out properly, you are opening yourself up for a lawsuit. You're opening yourself up to saying something that's not true. And you don't want to be in a situation where you're losing sleep over this, because ultimately you're working with the wrong person if they are telling you that that's okay. And ultimately, it doesn't matter if they waive a home inspection or not. You are liable for what you fill out and any material defect. Any material defect you need to talk about. You need to disclose. You need to tell them, hey, this is what happens here. This is what happens there. And then ultimately, you're covered. When in doubt, disclose. Disclose, disclose, disclose. Because if you don't, pretty much every case right now that is open trial is about disclosures. So when people say it's not serious, when people say it's no big deal, when people say they can just sweep things under the rug, you need to stop listening immediately, because they don't know what they're talking about and they're going to get you in some serious trouble. So stop what you're doing. Do not listen to somebody like this. And when in doubt, do the right thing. do what you're supposed to do, follow the rules to a T, and make sure you're not going to sit there and have to lose sleep over this because you were trying to save a few dollars. Ultimately, put it in writing, give a credit, get it repaired, and include it in the sale. But make sure that there's a written record of it. Make sure that there's like, hey, hello, I acknowledged you. This is the thing. I hate to break it to you, it's an old house. Things like this happen, and it's fair. Granted, things like this happen, and that's okay. And no one's saying that that's not okay. And the buyer will probably be okay with it. But put it in writing. Write it out. Cover your butt. Everybody needs to do that because ultimately 6 months down the line, the last call you want to get is saying, oh, remember when you lied on your property condition disclosure and you didn't tell them that the basement floods? Whoops. And you knew about it? And that's the thing. Do not do that. Just let them know. Let them know and take care of it right there. But if you have any questions with disclosures, please reach out to me. If you're planning on listing a property, you want to sell a property, talk to me about it. And as always, stay free.